You're listening to Kicking It with the Koves. Do you have a problem with it?
No, Sensei.
I mean, no, Dad.
No, Dad.
What's up, guys? Jesse Kove, Kicking It with the Koves. I'm here with my dad, Martin Kove, and my sister, Rachel Kove. We have an unbelievable guest with us today, Alan H. Green, who plays John Kreese in The Karate Kid, the musical. Alan is an incredible actor, born in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, raised in Texas, went to Robert E. Lee High School, where he was captain of the football team, a blue chip All-American running back, played the string bass in the Texas All-State Orchestra, was one of the top debaters in the country, which I have to ask him about. It's amazing. Student council president, homecoming king, and graduated number 2 in a class of over 500 students. Alan, also after college, he sang on, which is amazing also, sang on cruise ships, which led him to go to New York City. And after only living in New York for 3 months, Alan landed his first role on Broadway. And since then, he's been seen and heard in concert from the White House to the Mount of Olives in Jerusalem, on Broadway and Radio City, and stages across the country and on the small screen. But most of all, which is just beautiful, his favorite role that he's performed is being an uncle to his twin nephews, Aaron and Alan. And some of the most amazing theater that he has done, that he's been a part of, is The School of Rock, the musical, Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, The Visit, and Play On. Alan, welcome to Kicking It with the Koves.
I am so honored and delighted to be kicking it with the Koves today. I can't believe this. This whole thing, it just gets more and more like incredible and unbelievable. And I'm just thank y'all for having me.
Well, Dad,
there's a lot.
You just
There's
saw.
a lot of,
Go ahead, Dad.
there's a lot of great things waiting for you, Alan. Let me tell you. I mean, number one, you're the chief of Cobra Kai, as far as I'm concerned. I'm on hiatus. You are the chief of Cobra Kai. And Billy saw the show last night, I think.
Yeah.
And, you steal the show, man. You just steal the show. And it's not because I have associations. It's just because the bottom line is Robert Kamen is such a brilliant writer. These lines are being said now, 35 years later: sweep the leg, no mercy, all the lines you do on stage. And he's such a good writer. I believe the only character he tweaked was yours, because your character is more psychotic than I was in the first movie.
Well, it's funny. So they've given a little bit more of a backstory. So kind of in my mind, the musical has a lot of the exact same elements from the movie, but I feel like the Kreese world in Cobra Kai has a little bit of the Cobra Kai TV show sensibility to it. And so they've just given some backstory and elaborated on maybe why, Kreese is the way he is. And I tell you, we have a good time. It was just an honor to meet you at opening night. That was like, just kind of wild. I don't know what to say. And all I'm doing is showing up and trying to continue the like indelible stamp that you put on this dude. And I'm just trying to like continue that.
How much, because I come from the background of Lincoln Center and Cafe La Mama and a lot of stuff back in New York before I got out here. How much each day does the performance for you change and vary? Do you find yourself going in certain directions on a Tuesday, and then, because I know you've had previews,
right,
but do you find yourself vacillating in some areas and yet getting more potent in others? Because I always love that process, as an actor.
Yeah, well, that's one of the great things about live theater, is that like you're doing the same thing, but every show is different. Every audience is different. And I always say, I'm giving 100% of whatever I have that day. That's just the reality. And, sometimes your audience is more into it or quieter. Maybe they're older, so they're into it, but they're just less vocal. Or then sometimes you might have a younger audience that's just as into it, but they're screaming so loud. So you kind of have to balance, because you still want to like do the job that you're set out to do. But that audience is a whole nother character. And certainly for Kreese, when I walk out there and those phenomenal dancers and actors are on either side of me for the dojo, but that continues out into the audience. audience. I mean, the audience, the whole theater is my dojo as far as I'm concerned. And so it's kind of cool to like talk directly to people. And the audiences here in St. Louis, they've been loving it. And you know, it's been spectacular. And it's just so fun. You know, in the first part of my career, I played a bunch of good, like valiant guys. And then when I turned 40 and I started playing everybody's dad, just I'm always somebody's dad. And then the past little while, I started to play these bad guys. And there is nothing like playing the antagonist. I mean,
Alan loves it. He loves it.
it's just, and like you said, the lines that Robert wrote, I mean, and like I said, the legacy that you've already started, it's just like, I'm just trying to step right in and just keep it going.
I'm like literally biting my nails in anticipation because I was going to go with my dad. We were going to go and see him, but because of scheduling, we just couldn't get out there in time. But we are absolutely going to come and see it. And I've seen photos online. There's been amazing reviews. I don't remember if it was. I think it was Broadway Magazine. Whoever said it was a knockout, which is so exciting. And I want to know, like, just before this happened, I mean, you guys have probably been in preparation for this at least a few months before you guys had either a soft opening. I don't know if you did a soft opening, you just jumped right in.
Yeah, no, we've been kicking around for like 6-7 years. I mean, it takes a long time for a show to get to Broadway. And also this producing team, Kamiko, Gorgeous Entertainment, they've also been really smart in the way that they've produced this. They wanted to get it right. And so they didn't just say, hey, here's a title, let's send this to Broadway because everybody's going to know it and everybody's going to come see it. They said, no, we want to honor this story. We want to honor these characters, but then we also want to bring something kind of interesting and new to it. So I actually came on board 6 or 7 years ago. I was just asked to sing the Kreese song in the Bahamas for a producers conference. And Drew Gasparini, our phenomenal composer and lyricist, he sang Miyagi, and then his sister sang Allie and Lucille, and then a guy named Trevor, who's also in the show here in St. Louis, he sang Daniel. And that's kind of how I started with the project. They just asked me to come to the Bahamas to sing the song. And then I met Mark. And Mark was like, man, you got up off that stool and you stood up at that mic and you turned into Kreese. And then all of a sudden, I was kind of a part of the family. So it wasn't, that's just kind of how it happened. So we've had, so to answer your question a little more specifically, so there have been what you call readings and workshops. So we did the thing in the Bahamas, and again, back to like the producers being so phenomenal, they sent our composer Drew to Okinawa so he could work with some non-English speaking musicians in Japan and figure out the voice of Miyagi. So that's where he wrote the things that Miyagi sings. He already had the first Kreese song. He had Square One, which is Daniel's I Want song. He had Lucille's song written. So then after we did the Bahamas, we did like a 10-day, what you call a reading, where we learned all the music, went over the lines, and then at the end of about a 2-week period, we just stood at music stands and sang and read the whole thing. Nothing was memorized. There was no dancing, just so that the creative team could hear, like, what is this piece now? And then they did some tweaking, they did some changing, they cut songs, they added new songs. Then we got together about 1.5 years ago and did a full-on 6-week workshop of the piece, where after 6 weeks, we did 2 presentations on its feet with choreography. So we didn't have costumes. There was like minimal suggestions of props and such. We had a lot of the panels and some of the stuff that happens. And so we did that for the New York kind of investors and theater owners. And that was about 1 year ago. And then now we're here. And then of course, this is the first, fully realized production here in St. Louis. And so that's the trajectory. I mean, I think people think that like, people just put a show on Broadway with all that money, those tens of millions of dollars, you got to like take some time. And also sometimes it takes a little bit of time for something to become what it is, right? There's like a gestation period. And even though it's, the Karate Kid, we already know what it is, you're adding a whole nother layer to it by making it into a musical. So you've got songs and you've got phenomenal dancing and choreography and fight choreography and all this kind of stuff. And so it takes a while to figure all of that out. So we've been kicking around, I think, for about 6 or 7 years to get to this point here in St. Louis.
Wow, I had no idea that. I knew it. I mean, obviously being in the film industry, I knew that things take at least a year or two, whatever, to kind of get going. But I mean, I didn't know that it went that far back. I mean,
and certainly the 2 years of COVID, we could maybe subtract those 2 years, but it does take a while, and particularly when you have thoughtful producers who really want to nurture the piece. They're not in a hurry. They knew they wanted to do this. They got Robert on board. They got Drew to write the music. They got a phenomenal choreography team, Keone and Mari. So they wanted to make sure that they gave it the proper time to develop it so that it could become what it is.
And all the while that you're doing this, Cobra Kai is dominating the streaming world in the background.
That's just like, Billy was talking yesterday about how, he said he and Ralph always talk about how the Karate Kid is just kind of touched. It's just kind of got a magical thing to it. And that's another example of that. The Karate Kid musical was happening and being developed before we certainly knew anything about Cobra Kai. And then, the world watches Cobra Kai to get through the pandemic. And then coming out of that, here we are. So you got all these people coming at it from, the nostalgia for people like me who were younger when the movie was out. And then all these 15 to 25-year-olds who were cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs over Cobra Kai. It's just incredible that just happened to be the case.
Did knowing okay, I was just going to ask, did knowing more about Kreese from Cobra Kai impact the way that you portrayed John Kreese in the show?
So I'm not completely caught up on Cobra Kai. I'm about 2 seasons in, and I'm gonna be honest with you. So I've done, for whatever reason, a lot of musicals that are based on movies. And one of the things I started doing is I don't watch the movie. Now, of course, I had seen The Karate Kid, when it first came out, but I did not go back and watch it until a couple of days ago. Because what I have found is, as an actor, I want to just respond to literally what's on the page in front of me in this script and this musical version. And I don't want to come to it with any well, this is what this is supposed to be, and this is how I should do this. I want it to reveal itself to me. And so I actually didn't rewatch the Karate Kid movie. I haven't watched it in years, even though I was a part of this project. I didn't watch it until our first preview. The night after our first preview, I said, okay, now I've got a clarity of what I think I need to do. Now let me watch this movie again. And it was so interesting. It's funny how things end up being organic this way. I was oh, I think Kreese needs a tattoo of a cobra on his arm. And so I was all excited thinking I was some clever person. And then I watched the movie and I was oh, he has a tattoo of a cobra on his arm. That makes sense. But then I totally completely stole this. The way you stand with the gi, I wasn't doing that. So that's one of the specific things that I was okay, I'm gonna start standing like that in parts of the place. But that's kind of how I have done it, so that I can bring a freshness to it, but I can also honor the material. But like I said, in the Karate Kid, we've all seen the movie, so I certainly had an idea of what it was.
Had you create
that freshness? Because I literally was calling my dad the night of, and I was Dad, how was it? I was just as excited. I wish I was there. And he literally was he's Jesse, I was blown away. He's this guy, he made this character so maniacal and amazing. He was it was a totally different way than the way I did it. And he was brilliant. It was amazing to hear that.
Thanks.
Had you created? I'm sorry. There's so many people in here, so we tend to interrupt. But I'm curious, when you got the script and you're reading this, what is the backstory that you created psychologically for this maniacal character such as John Kreese?
Yeah. So for me, I'm just gonna be real honest with you. in my mind, I played high school and college football in Texas.
Wow.
And Kreese is several of my football coaches.
Wow.
That's
Right.
that's the immediate place that I started from. If there was no movie and I just read this,
Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, I'm thinking this, and I lived Friday Night Lights. I lived like a few hours from where that TV show was based on, and so my Texas football coaches in high school and in college, 50% of them are Kreese. I'd say there's a subtle difference in that some of them really think their extreme coaching is helping the kid. Some of them really believe that. But then some of them, like Kreese, the kids are just pawns. He's living out what he's trying to do and carrying on his kind of issues and baggage using the kids. And so that was kind of an immediate, like, even people were like, how do you just tap into this person? And it really is my Texas football coaches, because so many of them, I mean, they would literally take a kid in a football helmet and jerk him down to the ground and then make the kid run until he threw up.
It's religion in Texas.
Yeah.
Football's
and in Texas, it's, and I know that happens all over the country, but certainly in Texas, it's like a whole other level.
Did being coached like that help you in your career? Like, did it help?
So I will say humbly, I was never treated that way by the coaches. I was
because you were Cobra Kai at birth. That's why.
Yeah. I was successful. I was a running back. I got a lot of the glory, and was always kind of a big dude, but could run as fast as the small dudes. And so I was never really the object of a lot of that treatment, but I saw it every day.
What was it like to see it?
It's crazy. I mean, it's completely crazy to see a coach knock a kid down and then make the kid run until he throws up. I mean, it's really, it's one of those, so I like to stay in shape and, I like to do a lot of HIIT classes and all this kind of stuff, because running was a punishment in Texas football. If one person did something wrong, we all had to run. And to this day, the idea of just running, I can't do it. I'm out. Unless somebody's chasing me, I ain't running anywhere. So I got to figure out a different way to get my cardio in, because it was just part of the punishment of the whole thing. The whole team would have to go and run.
Well,
go ahead, Dad.
Robert Kamen had I'm sure he shared this with you, Alan, that he had a drill sergeant in karate class that was just like John Kreese, and that's who he modeled it after. He experienced a monster in the Marines, I think it was. Yeah. And he experienced a monster. And I remember just sitting down with him and saying, tell me about this guy. And he said, makes you look like a Disney character.
Yeah.
I said,
yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I'm telling you, in the Bahamas, so we were there and I was doing the sound check, and Mark and I hadn't met yet. And it was just the afternoon of the performance. This was the 6 or 7 years ago. And so he walked into the ballroom, and I thought to myself, okay, this is going to be this man's first impression of you. So you better not do a sound check. You better just do this thing for real. So I got up there and did my thing. And then we did the presentation. And then Mark took us all to this great restaurant in the Bahamas. And he said to me, I walked in that ballroom and you were sitting on that stool. He said, and then you stood up and you presented that song. And he said, you literally just turned into the man that I wrote this about.
Great.
And I was like, great.
and that is the way to avoid other interpretations of the character. How many people played Brando over the years and played, and were doing, especially now, there's a project called The Offer, which is very interesting about the making of The Godfather. And none of the actors who playing James Caan, who are playing Coppola, who are playing Brando, none of them do, Mom, I can't do it. They don't go in there. They do their interpretation of Jimmy Caan or whatever. And it's brilliant.
Yeah.
And it's truly brilliant because actors are doing what you're doing, making it their own.
Right.
You know, I always wanted to be Steve McQueen all my life. And only in the last maybe 20 years, and I'm in the business 50 years, only in the last 20 years that I realized it was okay to be Marty Kove.
That's right.
That it was okay for me to interpret the role my way. But I always wanted to have Steve McQueen qualities because he was my idol.
Yeah,
And you jumped out of it real quick. It took me a long time. You know, I was getting away with it because I was working and playing tough guys. But the bottom line is, I didn't have to play Steve McQueen. I could have played Marty Kove 40 years ago. You know?
Right.
You
Yeah,
know?
that's one of the lessons. You know, I came to this whole theater thing kind of late in life, and so when I moved to New York, I spent the first 10 years probably of my career trying to be and sound like all the other leading men. And it wasn't until I thought to myself, you know what, I've got a little bit of a different background vocally. I've got a little bit of a different background with the acting experience and everything. So why don't I just do this the way I would do it and stop trying to be what I think the Broadway leading man is. And then cut to, 10 years later, people are writing parts for me. I say humbly, but it's like, what makes us different is ultimately our special sauce. And it's a lesson that we have to remind ourselves. It's not just something that you learn and then it's done. You got to keep remembering that. And the weight of your, again, indelible stamp on this character. It's like, okay, well, nobody can do exactly what he did. So that's why when I have done a lot of musicals based on movies, I kind of stay away from the movie for a while and just do what I respond to. And then once I've got kind of a clear direction, then I go back to the movie and think, okay, now let me see what he did and how did he say this? Even like little things, like the way you say, but I like that. It turns out that I was kind of saying it the same way you did in the movie without like knowing it. It's like a similar thing. And like I already said about the tattoo, I thought I was being so smart to be like, I should have a snake on my arm, and you already had one, so then it's like, okay, well then this is correct. if I'm coming up with this organically, then that's already what it is, and that's what it should be.
Great. And you'll end up guesting Cobra Kai. You will end up guesting on Cobra Kai.
Hey,
that would be amazing. Oh my God.
I mean, I haven't even talked to Hayden about it because those guys are busy doing another show now.
To all the fans listening, this is not a confirmed thing, so don't go crazy. Okay, this is all speculation.
Hey, I say bring it on. I'm down.
I'm down. I love it.
Come on.
But it would be like a sensei coming from the Arctic.
Yeah.
and teaching a sensei who has taught Eskimos. And is so prolific at some form of karate. Right. And then John Kreese takes a step back and says, I want you to meet our new sensei, and then they'll write you something so brilliant, but it's down the line. God knows it'll be fun.
Yeah,
it's so funny, Alan. You were talking about the feeling from being on stage to the audience, because my dad's done theater. I've done off-Broadway, which is a very unique experience. And it really is. I think theater is literally, if you can do theater, you can literally do anything.
Absolutely.
On film, television, because it's one and done. You got the one chance to do what you're doing up there. It's live. I mean, it is terrifying and the most exciting thing at the same time. I don't know about you, but I always get the jitters right before the curtain goes up.
Yeah. I tell that when I do a little bit of teaching or workshopping with younger folks who want to be actors, I said, the reality is that the narcissism and the insecurity and the nerves, none of that goes away. As you get older, you just learn how to channel it in a healthy way. You learn how to make it not stifle you. So yeah, I'm like about to do Kreese and Marty Kove is in the audience. To say that I wasn't nervous, that would just be a big old lie, right? But I have to know how to okay, let me take this and let me use it and let me, bring this fierceness that I know I can do and that I know I need to do. But yeah, that stuff never goes away. And if it goes away, then you probably need to go do something else.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah.
Any actor that ever tells that it's told me in the past, I'm not nervous when I go on. Yeah. I said, oh,
Yeah.
what? Go back and doing Jack and Jill, you know?
Exactly.
Go back reciting Humpty Dumpty, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
Is there a certain moment, Alan, on one of the sets that you know that the audience gets a little bit like pumped up for, that you know that they're about to see? I'm because I haven't seen it, so I don't know which songs or what.
Well, certainly our lighting designer and our set designer, Derek, and our lighting designer, Brad, the entrances that they give me with the lighting and the panels, it's like, I told some friends of mine, I said, no, I don't come on to like page 35. I said, but it'll be real clear when you're about to see me. And you'll get a kick out of this, Marty, because you've already seen it. But I had some friends come last night and they said that either my third or fourth entrance, as I was kind of coming out and being revealed, they said this woman behind them said kind of loud, "That man is mean." But yeah, it's a whole, you can hear, I mean, as soon as we know we're getting into the Cobra Kai world, you know, that 35, 36 pages into it, everything changes. You know, the look of the show, the choreography of the show, the sound of the show, it all completely changes. So the show's kind of going in one direction, and then Cobra Kai happens and it's like, we're going to go this way now. And, you know, you can just feel the audience just excited. So then when there's the next entrance, it's like, okay, now what's this crazy man going to do now? Like, we already seen one thing. Now what are we about to see? So it's exciting. And you can hear, like today, I just finished a matinee. We've got a show tonight. And of course, the Wednesday matinee is a little bit of an older crowd. They don't, you know, scream as much and whatever, but you can still feel their excitement and their electricity as this stuff is happening in front of them. And the audiences have been great, you know, so it's cool. Yeah.
It's
Rachel, Jesse, when he makes his entrance, it is the devil. It's so lit, and gold and black geese. And I don't want to spoil it for you, but I have to tell you this moment, it's all red. Everything is red. And it is the devil stepping into his lair.
Oh my God, that's a perfect way to say it.
It is just the devil stepping into his lair, and he commands it. Yeah. He commands it as well as I did and better, because the stage is the essence of actors. I mean, movies are great, TV is great, but the stage is where you feel your oats and you feel like I made the right decision with my life. I'm supposed to be here, you know?
Yeah. Speaking of which, I'm going to tell you a moment. So there's a little bit of backstory. I don't want to give it away, but there's a little bit of speaking of thinking of knowing where you're supposed to be and seeing your awesome family doing this together. So I lost my father about 20 years ago. And one of the only things that I never knew about him, he was a Vietnam vet. And I didn't know that till I was 13. And so when I found out, I kind of was like, oh, hey, Dad, tell me about when you were in Vietnam. And he said, son, that's something I will never talk to you about, or I will never talk about. So 20 years later, I'm doing Miss Saigon. I did several productions in Miss Saigon all over the world in a couple different languages in the first part of my career. So the first time I was doing it, like 10 years later, and I'm playing a Vietnam vet. And I said, oh, let me ask my dad now about this. And I said, 10 years later, hey, Dad, tell me about you being in the Vietnam War. And he said, what did I tell you the last time you asked me that? And so they've given, Kreese has a bit of a Vietnam War backstory. And during our tech process, there was a prop that they used where they had superimposed my face on this military outfit. And it was a big portrait of me as a Vietnam War veteran. And I hadn't seen it yet. And so we were teching through the show, and it kind of comes down, I'm talking to Johnny Lawrence, and I make a reference to the medals that were in the portrait. And I looked back, and I'm telling you, it was my father. And even Jake, who plays Johnny Lawrence, said, you have a different expression in that picture than you typically do in your other pictures. And I said, I know that's exactly what my father looks like. And it literally took my breath away. I was about to have to leave stage. And then luckily the stage manager said, hold please. And I just went off to the stage to the side. And I just thought, this is confirmation that I'm where I'm supposed to be, doing the right thing.
Art and spirituality, all
Yeah,
metaphysical.
It was just such a beautiful moment. I sent it, I took a picture of it, and they ended up switching it. And so now it's that photo is not used in the show, which happens in developing of shows. They tried all different ways to express that moment. And I think the way that they decided to do it is the right way. But just to see that photo, and I'm kind of glad I don't have to look at it every night, because it was so like overwhelming. But it really was like, you just said, Marty, about being in the right place at the right time. I just took that as like confirmation that like, okay, this is where you're supposed to be, and this is what you're supposed to be doing.
Wow, that's wild.
Boy, oh
Thank
boy.
you for sharing that.
Yeah, it was very powerful and meaningful. And I'm sorry for the loss of your father. And I'm curious about how do you do you have a spiritual practice in your life? Do you have a way that you stay balanced in your life? Do you have rituals and routines?
Yeah.
Well, are you not John Kreese at the market?
Yeah, well, I'm actually a deacon at my little Baptist church.
Wow.
In New York. So I definitely believe in a higher power. That's very important to me. The other thing I'll say is that I have a handful of great friends, and most of them are not actors. And so I don't stay within my business all the time. And I feel like that's important. And I think part of it is probably because I didn't grow up wanting to be on Broadway and on TV. That's just kind of the path that my life ended up taking. But I think it's important to, I always tell people, you can't let this industry, this job, give you your joy. You have got to figure out a way to have your joy regardless of the job, because we're always going to get more no's than we get yeses. And so you're just inherently stacking the deck against yourself. So you can be happy or sad because of a job situation, but you can't let it have control of your joy, because then it will have the power to take your joy away. And so that is like a daily thing that I am very thoughtful and intentional about, because I don't want to give power to anybody else to control my joy. And so that's through my higher power, through my family, through my friends. And, like I said, I've got my ritual. When I get a gig that I get excited about, I'll let myself go get these very expensive king crab legs that are big as my arm, and I savor that. And when I don't get a job, there's a place called Amy's Breads in New York, and I go get this big, huge piece of cake, and I sit around and, feel sorry for myself for about 24 hours, and then I press on. And it's the same way when I get the job. I eat those king crab legs. I'm the coolest cat in the world. And then 24 hours later, back to the grind, back to just the journey and what I'm doing. So I allow myself happiness and sadness, but I'm trying to keep my joy, because I love what I do. And I'm so grateful that I get to pay a few bills doing what I love to do. But there's more to life than just this. And so it's important to me to experience that. And also, I think, ironically, that makes you a better actor, too.
I'm so glad you said that. And thank you for sharing that. I have these conversations with my dad all the time, because, we're both actors. And sometimes it's like you said, like, yes, we're always so grateful to have a job, to do our art. But sometimes this is our path that we chose. Sometimes it is a job. Like, it is our job. It's the same as like anyone who gets up in the morning, they got to put their work clothes on and they go and do this, except, we're putting on a spacesuit or a cowboy outfit or a Cobra Kai gi, whatever. And it is also extremely difficult at the same time, because it is emotionally and physically taxing. I mean, and sometimes, yes, like you said, it is very enjoyable. And then sometimes it's like, all right. I mean, like you said, you're doing a performance tonight, which is like mind-blowing to me that you're going to be doing that tonight. I mean, the energy that it takes to do what you do. I mean,
and also too, it's like the commitment to like I said before, I'm trying to give 100% of whatever I have that day. So I don't have a perfect 100%. I just need to give that audience 100% of what I have that day. And as long as I continue to do that, but it's different than other jobs. Other jobs you can roll in and maybe give 70 or 80% and still make it through. But in live theater, that audience knows, but even beyond the audience, I would know. And so that's why it's important to me. This was a heavy show week. There was a lot of things going on, and this is a vocal. I mean, I sit around for 35 pages and do nothing, and then I enter that stage and I go from 0 to 100 in 2 seconds. There's no warm up. There's no intro. It's like, bam, here comes John Kreese. And so I've been a little quieter when I'm at home. I haven't been talking as much on the phone. I'm a talker, if y'all can't tell, because it's like I got to save my voice for my job, because I take it seriously. But at the same time, like I said, we just can't let it control our joy.
Is it hard to shake off the character when you leave?
You know what? What I have found is that I act stupider than usual off stage, and I realize that that's because I'm getting them off. And it's funny that the interns and the local people who are in the theater, they're like, "Wow, you are nothing like you are on stage." Like they're just amazed, right? But I realize that I'm like, even because I like to have fun and bring joy into the room. That's another thing. I feel like if we're not having fun doing this, then we might as well be brain surgeons and have 5 houses all over the world, right? So it's important to me to have fun and have a good time. But I have found myself being particularly just kind of silly because it's such a veil of ferociousness that's happening on the stage. And so when you get off, you kind of just gotta be like, okay, calm down, Alan, just calm down,
But there's a joie.
I actually probably can get into it a little quicker than I can get out of it. It takes me a minute to be like, oh, okay.
Well, there's a joie de vivre that comes, strangely enough, to use joie de vivre, lust for life, as an expression of John Kreese, but
right.
of what you do. But there is, which is
right.
why everybody enjoys your performance and why everybody says you steal the show. Because there is a joie de vivre when you get out there. And even though when I did the first movie, it all came to me. There was very little direction by John Avildsen. It was just that character. I did what you did. It just flowed in my body. And it just came out. And I did very little backstory research. I did much more backstory for the show, for the TV show. But when it flows, it's kind of a dark joie de vivre, and the energy, just the colors, this lighting, what you say, belittling the other guy, and you can break these people with the snap of your fingers, and there's a power in that allows us to kind of hold back a little, but totally enjoy it, And that's why you're so successful on stage, because you totally enjoy being the devil.
Yes, this is true. I have, it's almost a little scary how much I enjoy playing this.
You totally get to let go, right? You said you're a deacon. And this is the total opposite. You just get to let go and be this character.
It's a whole other thing. And I just love it.
I remember watching Burt Lancaster and Elma Gantry years ago, the first, time I've ever seen an evangelist. And in high school, they used to call me the evangelist because I would always go, and the Lord says, bring him to, and I would love that because it was powerful and yet it was godlike and spiritual. And John Kreese has a lot of that,
My dad loves gospel. You would never know this, but he actually loves gospel. Loves it.
That's fantastic.
Well, Alan, I know we don't want to keep you too long because I know you got to do what you got to do tonight. It has been such a pleasure to have you here. We're so excited. Please take our positive energy with you tonight from our family.
Yes.
We're there with you on the stage as you are sweeping legs and singing to the audience and all. Oh, that's beautiful.
That is. And I just want to say for the listeners, I was really Marty, as soon as they announced the cast, Marty immediately reached out to me on Instagram with just messages of support and encouragement. And I'm getting a little emotional. And so I just, you didn't have to do that. You don't know me from Adam, right? And so I really appreciate that. And the whole thing, I'm emotional because it's so wonderful. There's nothing sad about it. It's wonderful. It's more than I even thought it would be, just sitting here with you and your family today. It's all just even more, and my dad used to always say, be careful what you pray for, you just might get it. And I always say, we come up with plan A, but then God comes up with plan A plus. And this has just literally been an A plus experience for me all around the board. So thank you guys.
So glad. Well, you are a permanent, I would say, eternal house guest in my ranch in Nashville. So you need a little break from the madness between here and Broadway. You come out and we'll run John Kreese lines, and we'll do it. We'll do it like Pussycats. We'll do it.
Yeah.
Guys.
And then can we go to Biscuit Love in Nashville?
Yeah.
That's my joy.
We'll go to the clubs and we'll do that,
Oh my goodness.
Today, I did a little speaking today in a seminar, and a woman came up to me as we're leaving, and she said to me, we live in New York, and my son wants to become an actor. Please tell me, what should we do? Should we enroll in a school? Should we go, should he go out and do professional stuff? And I said to her, I just said, bottom line, get a foundation in the theater, read backstage, read what's in town, go to class. If you can afford to keep your kid in school, acting school every day, and he doesn't have to take another job, do it. Because the value of New York, and you live in New York, the value of all the different, the different venues that you can play in is, you're a living and breathing example of that, and it was I always tell kids, just get a foundation of theater, and you're the epitome of that, man.
Like you said, Jesse, if you can do 8 shows a week in front of a live theater, in front of a live audience, you can do anything.
You are an artistic warrior. We're honored to have you here today.
Thanks so much.
I can't wait to meet you in person, and neither can Rachel. Alan, where can people follow you and find you to follow your journey?
Just Instagram, Alan H. Green, AlanHGreen on the little Instagrams. That's where I'll be.
Perfect. Well, thank you.
Excuse me 1 second. How long will the show stay in St. Louis?
We're going until Sunday, June 26th. I think it's either the 25th or the 26th, whatever that Sunday is. So basically 2.5 more weeks.
And then what you do with the show after that?
Well, I hope it goes to Broadway. That's the, that's
no
the
way
goal.
That it's not going to Broadway.
Yeah. That would be the goal for sure. And I don't know, I don't know what their timing is. One of the things about Broadway is theater availability. So there's you can want to go and have the best product in the world, but if there's no theater that's either available or willing to let you be there. But I know Kamiko and Amon, I know they all have all that figured out. And I know they didn't do all of this for St. Louis to be the end of the road for the Karate Kid, the musical. That much I do know.
And Cayman is a madman. He will never let it stop in this one place.
Well, but here's the thing though, the world won't let Karate Kid stop. That's the reality. The world wants it over and over and as in many forms as possible.
Yeah.
We will send the Cobra Kai army to fill those New York seats for a year.
And the Cobra Kai, Cobra Kai Kid and Cobra Kai Companion, they just have embraced us and are so excited. Even before they saw it. And so just all the love and support just right out of the gate has just been awesome. And now that it's been received so well and these audiences are freaking out, it's just all so much more than we thought. But we hoped that people would like it because we knew it was special. And so it's great to see that folks think it's special.
Good.
Nice to meet you, Alan. I can't wait
to meet y'all. I hope I get to meet y'all in person. And I'm coming to that ranch, Mr. Kove.
Yeah, you come. You got a room here. Everything.
Yeah.
We're gonna put all kinds of posters up, and and we'll recite the lines. Everybody.
I can't wait.
Alan, thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Break a leg tonight and sweep a leg tonight.
Sweeping or as your dad said the first time, sweep the stage. That's what he said.
I love that.
And you do. You sweep the stage. Trust me.
Thank you.
Thanks, Alan. Good luck tonight, and
Thanks
thank
so
you
much.
for coming on. And we will talk to you soon, brother. Thank you so much.
Thanks.